All right. Actually, I definitely love this one, but what about some classic? What happened to my Zelda and Chill? That just pinned at the top. A little bit of classic. Okay. Cool. There we go. Dig in. All right, Monday morning. Let's remember how to do this. Let's do a little survey. Survey of where we've been. Okay, so we did this one. We did this one. This one took forever. Ooh, got a little out of order there. We did this one. Looks great. Then we did this one. Looks great. A few regrets on this one, but we're gonna move on. Then we did this one. And I've been sleeping on this, and I think this is ready to go. We may, you know, it's not perfect, but I'm like, realistically, what am I gonna do to fix anything? I suppose I could dial back the lines a bit. We could mess with it. I'm liking where this is going. It's interesting. I wonder what should I... I have a sense the potential of my day will go like this. I can work on this right now, and then later on today, I can finish out this one and post it. Just be done with it. Because I think it looks cool. But let's try to make work happen on this one. Start the morning out with a little challenge. There are some layers here that I might not use. What if I did though? Let's mess around for a bit. Let's be bold. Let's mess around and break stuff. Oh, hi, Jules. Paul, hi from class. Came in. Wish you a good stream. I'm very happy for Kiki. Yes, me too. You can imagine. Very happy. I'm so ready to have like a boring rest of my life. Hopefully. You can never say never with this stuff, but it's a huge milestone. So yeah, quick recap. So not everyone's in the dark. Kiki got favorable test results. That's all I'm actually comfortable saying. My wife is reminding me that, like, you know, we actually haven't talked to the doctor. We only saw the test results. We can infer what we can infer based on the fact that it says the scans were clear and that there's no activity detected, etc., etc., etc. But that's just one of many tests that they ran. That happened to be the gold standard test. It definitely appeared to come back favorable. They would have called us immediately if anything was found, theoretically. So I definitely slept okay over the weekend, but technically the meeting is today with the oncologist. So but yeah, that is the current status of things. It's, for what it was, it wasn't bad news, which is incredibly good to hear. So right now I'm messing around with some of these shading layers. I probably shouldn't, but I like to live dangerously. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't like any of that. Put all that away. Sometimes that stuff can bail me out, but I think it'll be a hindrance. Let's go back. Let's think about things that will help. We need a bunch of more bits of, what would you call them? Embers from a fire? Something like a spark? The fires themselves, like, they can't just be flame. I want little bits of energy popping off from the fire. Theoretically, I have a brush that I use. Huh, that's cool. It's too much. But I do like that for the Faerie, so I'll remember that. Okay. Crinkle airbrush, that's the one. This will be interesting. I want to see if I can get some movement on those sparks. Like they were being blown around in the wind. But not with a lot of, not like with a lot of like linearity, but with a lot of, you know, when like leaves blow in the wind, it's not just in a straight line. Like they'll sort of, they're light enough, they get whipped around in like little vortexes. So there's like curved patterns to them. And one leaf will blow one way and one will blow the other way. Like, how do I do that here? Camera motion blur. Let me try this. If I draw a curve. What just happened? Okay, that kind of did it. I might have to do them in smaller batches. It is working, but it's not going to be bright enough. Try something else. Oh, nope. Delta Arcade says, looks amazing. I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan. Well, let me show you something. If it's your first time, here, we'll make my hilarious face go away. Ah! Look, it's better. There we go. So this is the finished one for that one. That's number one. Okay, and then I did a detour where I tried doing these old school. This is like an old school Moblin from like the original series. Being confronted by a fairy. So it's a bit of a stretch with the thematic emblems, but okay. That's the worst of them. All right, let's see here. Here's one where Link takes on two Stalfos. And so I'm showing you the progress. Like every morning I would work on this a little bit and save it out. So here's the finish on that one. Delta Arcade. I actually I have that emulator on my phone. It's awesome to have that stuff here. Thank you. I appreciate the little boosty boost. That's fun. So this is Link and Zelda running away from an Octorok here. Ah, it's nice to wake up to some praise. Let's see here. And so this one I posted just the other day. Here, I'm posting these on like Instagram and Reddit and stuff. Let's see here. I'm getting tens of likes. Here, we'll post these, put these things up. If you, yeah, this one had a lot of challenges. The Study Studio Max is where I'm posting these to Instagram. But it's cool that, you know, even if you just look at it, pop in here every once in a while, you can see me working on cool stuff. Oops. And then here we go. So this is came next. Let me turn that stuff off. How do I do that? Here we go. So here, this is Link sort of evading some fires. If you catch the reference from the original Legend of Zelda, the Vires were goofy bad guys that essentially I'm trying to sort of like think in anticipation of the Zelda movie coming out, I'm trying to sort of imagine, just as a personal project, like what would Zelda be like if it was, I don't know, like a 80s, 90s action movie or something. Like, assuming it's done right, or almost in like a Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones-y aesthetic. If that is right, like, how is it done? And trying to have a sense of things. Okay, and so that's that one, and so this one is what I'm working on right now. Oh, and then, so on deck, this is a Wizrobe and a Gibdo. And then this is young Link versus a Guinea. That's like in a graveyard scene. I know these are dark, it's like hard to see, but I've been sketching and working on these since like last November, so almost a full year now. Here's Link versus a Wallmaster. So this giant hand is coming down, and then this giant, this is like one of those fire-breathing statues. So a lot of this is like based in some of the original Zelda, like the original NES Zelda bad guys. For instance, this is the Manhandla, which is a sort of a, thank you. I do storyboards for advertising and entertainment in Los Angeles. So I've actually worked on several video game to cinematic trailer adaptations. So, but Zelda would be a well, you lucked out today, popping along with this one. And so this is like Death Mountain. So these are like Tektites, and Link is, I know Zelda is not a climbing game or anything like that necessarily, but here we have him ascending Death Mountain, killing some bad guys. Also, it's like, I'm in my early 40s, so this is I'm allowing myself some grace to decide a little bit. I'm slightly a little bit more indexed on the violence and maybe not adult, but discretionary themes. And this one's super hard to see, but this is like a huge pack of Moblin and Bokoblin bad guys rushing in to attack Link with like Zelda and all sorts of craziness. So anyway, so there's like so I'm about halfway done with this first set of 12. We'll go back in time now. I started doing these in November, so there's actually a bunch of other black and white sketches that I haven't shown you, but yeah. Anyway. Yeah, as the Zelda aesthetic is sort of becoming more like, I mean, I think it's clear to say that the proportions of Link and Zelda are becoming more and more compatible with you know, human-sized proportions and the scales. Yeah, well, I'm of the era where, like the Zelda cartoon, if you remember, if you were of age, and you know, that made it clear that like the fairies could be, you know, not just incidental characters, but just sort of like miniature people in a land of miniature people. Where mostly the impression was that Link and Zelda were young adults then, and yeah, with all the trappings of what comes along with that. Independence and self-expression, put it mildly. So here, let me show you the rough sketch of this. This has caught your eye. This was the rough sketch I did. I did this back in probably December of last year. That's a guess, but timeline shouldn't be way off. These are, for each of these sketches, I roughed out. The whole thing has been live streamed. It's just been like a fun little experiment for me to try and... Eventually I want to try and make a foray into teaching some digital illustration techniques and or approaches to concept art. I'm not a concept artist, I'm a storyboard artist, but as someone who's routinely asked to do dozens and dozens of drawings in a day, the idea of just working on one drawing and making it look nice seems like a luxury. So I've been treating myself to a vacation, so to speak, in my downtime, trying to essentially sort of branch out a little bit, make a portfolio of things that can look cool. So you can see the rough idea expressed here is what we're trying to still bring to, even if like the aesthetics are slightly different. I was just like, you know, for this, I'm trying to dial up the realism, and the, you know, Link here is probably a little bit undersized, underscaled, and, you know, you can see my evolution on the takes of some of those things. But for the most part, it's almost exactly the same. And the story for this one is, if it's not obvious, is like Link has defeated a monster, but basically has almost died doing so, and he has to use a fairy to revive himself. And the fairy is not exactly distressed at the thought of it, so... Scroll Reaper joining, and I'm glad for it. Thank you. Right now I'm... Hold on, I thought I heard something. I have small children that sometimes wake up early in the morning, so we'll see. Okay, so that looks cool. So one thing that's going to happen in this is we're going to have a sense of like a lot of, if I were specific about this, there will not be a lot of depth of field. There will be yeah, Scroll Reaper, I will hesitate to say only good news, but there was... I think it's safe to say that we didn't get bad news, which I'm happy about. I'm quite happy. Yeah, this is very exciting. I'm gonna try and be. We have a shot. We have a shot at a normal life now. Okay. So by varying the size of these particles a little bit in depth and blurriness, we can get a sense of it's not real, like it's a faux sort of bokeh effect that like an esteemed cinematographer might go for. And then the fairy herself needs some sparklies. I'm not actually, so for the first time in forever, I'm not actually booked today. Which is, I mean, that's not a great thing, but I'm okay with having a break and handling some things that I need to take care of. Well, that's crazy. I'm really grateful for it, for all last week. If not for being busy with work, I would have been going crazy in my head about all this stuff I had to worry about. But today promises to be different. I might walk around and smell the roses. How about if I try that for once? I streamed I streamed yesterday morning, and Uchi joined and was like, "Whoa, what happened to you? You look tired." That was hilarious. The world is my oyster today. Yeah, it doesn't last forever. Wish I could capture that in a bottle. It just doesn't last forever, but I'll take it as it comes. It's like impossible to match the energy of an original rough sketch. And especially with just like random particle brushes, that's not quite going to cut it. Especially for the fairy stuff. So before long, I'll get in there and I'll actually paint in some little daubs of magic. But having a few moments to... Oh, another thing I need to do. Well, that's funny. The lines are... See, if I turn off the lines, sort of forces me to see that I have a lot of work to do in the shadows. And I want to scuff Link up like a lot. Like really make him look hurt. I can just get in there and do some of that right now. These little fires could look a little bit more. Adding all these little layers makes for lots and lots of little bits of confusion. Like, where is this fire layer? Oh, ground fire. There it is. I want the fire to be bright, but not brighter than the Faerie. Right? So how do I... What can I do to... Can I put a camera motion blur on the fire? That's not bad, actually. Delta, yeah, thank you. Check me out on Instagram. The Study Studio Max on Instagram. Or at least, you know, follow me on Twitch. Join the tens of people following me on Twitch. All right. Oh, and tell your artist friends, etc., etc. One of us. Yes, there are tens of us. There are literally tens of us. All right, thank you. Okay, this fire over here. Oops. Depth of field. Oh, that's neat. I'll mess with that later. This program that I use, Painter, has just a myriad of kind of feel like I want to smear this fire around. There's a smudge diffuser. What does that do? That's kind of cool. I mean, I don't love it, but that's cool. Is that it? Those are the tools I have? Ooh. Maybe blending tools? Blender's messy? Speckly diffuser. That's interesting. Kind of like that. That's fun. I don't want to make, you know, my aesthetic. I don't want to use effect brushes to avoid drawing and painting, but there are going to be, oh yeah, that's kind of good. what I don't want is there to be too much of a sense of the cutout cartooniness. I want it to feel like wind is sort of catching things, and that there's not a like all the hard edges I feel aren't serving very well. At the same time, I think I will just have to paint all that in, so that's okay. All that silly discussion I just had. There might be too much variation in this color of these sparks. I don't quite need them to be all those different flavors of color. Let me try one more thing. Feels okay for now. Really blur out some of these to get like a glow effect. Oh, this is too much. I can bring some of that back in later, but for this one, I can see my signature being in this bottom left corner instead of the usual bottom right. Okay. Let me try painting in a little detail into these fires. That was fun messing around with the effect brushes, but I am trying to do this the hard way. Set a good example. Do it without the shortcuts. Well, if the shortcuts were working better than the hard way, I might give it a shot, but I wasn't sure if those were actually working. You need to get a sense of like the undulating variations. feel a little bit more like it's got pockets of gas escaping from a source of carbon and oxygen or something. I don't know. And a layered effect, not just we're looking down at a fire, not not just a fire from the side. Should there be a small motion blur on some of those things? Would it be okay if I ask your critique on the Funko Pop sculpt? I'm trying to figure out what's missing in the composition. Absolutely. I'm certainly not going to speak with much authority on it, but I will give you my outside opinion. You can, if you want to post it in the link, or you could, the Discord is open as well, if you're more comfortable with that. The bottom of the base feels empty to me, and I was using the dust clouds and arrows to frame it, but the bottom portion of the base is bare. Not sure if it's a huge issue. Okay. Take a... Interesting. Right off the, I mean, obviously I can't see, you haven't posted it. If it happens to be I'm trying to think here. I mean, those arrows will be useful in redirecting the eye. That's my blind thing from my imagination. Just guessing at what might be a helpful solution. This fire looks pretty satisfactory, but right now what this fire is doing is it's looking too cool, and by contrast, I need to make Link and the Faerie look much cooler. But treating my light sources as though they're pretty much real is going to be something that is going to help me sort of find what feels right as we work through this in our imaginations. Just a little bit of that helps break down that cartooniness. On all the hard edges. Some hard edges, yes, but not all. I'll look at it whenever it's ready. You don't have to do it literally this second if it's coming out a little bit slower than... Like it's not a rush. I'll probably have time to stream later today. Okay, that's the fire in the background. feel like sparks are popping off of this stuff and getting caught in the wind. Little bits of breeze going around. Okay, that's feeling sufficiently strong. Okay, now let's work on Link a little bit. Let's get these lines down. Let's get it to like 60%. There's a few things that like I really want to try on this. Like getting some... Can I just try this now? How do they do this? This, subsurface scattering stuff. Okay, here. This is a useful distraction for me. It's looking pretty good. Here, I'll pull it into the, doesn't look compromising, so let's bring it in. So you said it's feeling empty. Do you mean basically like right here in the front? Is that something that can be handled with lighting? Like the subject of this makes it feel like it could handle some... I mean, right now it just looks like the shiniest part is... Well, it's not the shiniest part, but is a shiny, mostly empty bit of space that is catching a reflection. And maybe that's something that is that's evident here, but not in the final. Perhaps less so, but there is the scale of the base appropriate? You would know better than I. My mind is always sort of like, how could you fix this? You think maybe the base could be smaller? But that's sort of what I'm thinking, is maybe possibly. If the things are appropriately sized, and it's not like wildly, like if this is pretty appropriate for like Funko Pop kind of scales, because I've only seen them before like on a like they more or less stand alone. So I like if the design of things is looking great, like the aesthetic of the clouds and the arrows, based on the references that you showed me and stuff. And she's sort of perched on an arrow. I can see that. She's a Medusa character, I remember you saying. I'm not sure if it should be smaller. Some things I might try are there's the scale of the texture on the base is possibly smaller than it needs to be. Like maybe that gets scaled up. I don't know. Right now, the base kind of feels like it's a bit of a throwaway. And I don't know if this is perhaps a bit of an opportunity to have to make a statement in contrast. The Funko, it's such a like obviously the subtleties make such a big difference. And I don't know whether it makes sense to index more in one way or another, like less detail or like double down, you know? But right now it almost feels like a straddle. Is it possible to try something that feels like more of a, what if it, because it doesn't really feel like it's trying to say much or do much, but what if it felt like there was some height to the depth? So in I definitely see what's happening with the snake, but it almost looks like the snake is like if it was tilted down, like the head was a little bit more like I'm alive and I'm looking at you like I don't like you, like an angry guard dog, as if it was looking at the viewer. What if there were clouds that were sort of billowing up behind her with the snake arrows sort of coming up and sort of pointing at the viewer and pointing at her and indicating that like you don't want to mess with me. And then, you know, there could be the sitting on the arrow, like I get it, but I don't know if that is like I'll hope to venture to guess that the arrow as you've designed it doesn't look like it took like 1,000 years. So maybe she could be perched on something else. Slightly more something, you know? I don't know. Like a skull or, you know, I don't know the character really, so what if there was a way to tie in, like, you know, your personal mark as an artist could be represented there too, you know? Like if it was a skull, you know, it could be a skull, or something that felt felt ownable. Is any of that helping? Like if it it doesn't have to be like a ripoff of like the Iron Throne of Game of Thrones or something like that. But if it felt as though you know, and you can sort of like thumbnail it out on a piece of paper. I wouldn't necessarily do like jump into messing around with the 3D unless you were perfectly comfortable like breaking something. There's a frog witch. There's a frog witch or a frog that she bullies in the anime. Like if it looked like there was a frog like integrated into the scene, would also give it more context as opposed to like, oh, that's that character. Frog witch that she bullies. Oh, interesting. That might be another character that adds too much complexity if you're trying to keep it super simple. But just so you know, this actually looks good. So you also shouldn't mess around with it too much if like you're like, I think it's great. I think honestly, like the biggest issue is just find a solve with the lighting and maybe the lensing. I'm not really sure if the my initial read on this is it looks like she defeated the snake, and that isn't, I think, part of the equation here. But I like the sort of radial symmetry of all the arrows, sort of coaxing you to look fully around the thing. I mean, I'm thinking about it now. I might just find ways of, like, could it feel like the... What if instead of like a plateau of like ruined structure, which is what it looks like it's based on, like it's like using for a base. What if it was like a circular pattern, or like a perimeter of jagged stones that pointed upward towards her? And it doesn't have to be almost like not necessarily something super pointy, because I think the arrows need to be pointy. And it's tricky because the arrows just remind me of like I know this is like the way it's designed, but they look like something you would use for like a mouse tool, for instance. And part of me wonders, like, are they supposed to be so even if it's some creative licensing, what if you don't necessarily feel so grounded? This is tricky because it's in the Funko Pop style, which is so graphic. But I'm trying to think of it as like, could that stuff look cooler? And I wonder if it felt like there was more organic variation in the, and this may detract from the source, but like you have the arrows, they're all the same thickness. Is that something that is prescribed given the source material, or is that something you can play with more? Like the pointiness of the arrows, like it doesn't feel like they are, they feel rigid. So like they are bent pieces of, maybe play with the shapes a little bit. Can they come to a maybe like think of them as, or don't. I mean, you know the source material better than I, but like, the character from the Marvel movies, Venom, like that is his symbiote is like a living entity that can shapeshift and chooses to where it goes with the shapes, or maybe like the T-1000 sort of like it can be something that is a little bit anamorphic, like it can distort its shape depending on need. These are just things that I would play with. Like, could the thickness of the arrow stem change? Like, I can see they're in different sizes and scales, so you were definitely playing with some of that. Okay, but I'm gonna reel all that back in a little bit and say, I think mostly what's happening is just a composition with the lighting thing, where possibly it's just feeling like the way it's presented here is diverting too much attention to something that isn't as important. Like, to ram the point home, like, you know, right now you have a base that is tinier at the top than it is on the bottom, which is like normal for a base. But what if it was inverted? Like, you had the bottom of the thing was actually smaller, not drastically smaller. But what if it was smaller than the top part of the base, and you would get this upward movement, and possibly that's my theory, is you would get sort of something that felt like it was going more upward and expanding as it increased in height. And maybe something like that might point you in the right direction. It would at least force the light, instead of feeling cemented. Think about it that way, because you have the arrow that is wider at the top than it is at the bottom, right? It's like, maybe harness some of that. Like, what's that aesthetic? Because right now they're competing, right? All right, you know, I'm kind of bullshitting a little bit here because I just thought of this, but it's like, it is something that might help. What it would definitely do is you would catch a lot less of the light of the base in what you're presenting here. And that might be the easiest solve, given, you know, other than that, it looks done. The snake looks like it's sleeping to me. Sometimes this stuff, once you see, like, you could try it and be like, no, it's not working, and it'd be like, what? Well, you know, try and knock it out. It feels like something you could do fairly painlessly, given your skill with the program. Give it a good shot. See what you can do. But I wouldn't find a way to, like, get some light in there, and everything's about light. I like the idea of, like, bits of the ground playing in with the upward motion as well. You just get everything sort of playing with it a little bit, and a little bit of depth. Like, some of them could be closer to camera than others. It can still look like a circular sort of pedestal without having it be so uniformed. Because everything else has this sort of broken radial symmetry that is working great. And then that is so, you know, does it have to be? Could it be like a more obvious spiral? Not to make it look like a curl necessarily, but, you know, it feels like there's a potential to bring that in with the statement and support the character a little bit better. Is there any way to possibly integrate a curl of smoke coming up the arrow a little bit? I know the scales are a little bit tricky, but might be something that could help or hinder. You know, I don't know if it does. Oh, possibly, yeah. Oh, you're gonna 3D print stuff. That would be cool. This looks like it'd be tricky given the thicknesses and the difficulties. Yeah. I don't have any experience with designing for 3D printing or anything like that, what you're describing, but yeah, that could be a challenge. Eep. I could see those little hairs, her little, they look like they're tied together sideburns or something like that, but it's feels like those are delicate. Something to consider. And then also, you know, if something isn't going to print well, that doesn't mean you have to just suck it up or whatever. Like, the arrows that you have them, they could be supported from the back by the clouds. Like, side bangs will be delicate, yeah. there's nothing wrong with understanding that you have to make a compromise. Like, people understand and forgive those realities. So if they had to get glued to the underside of her chin, you know, think about that as something that is okay to do. You know, if her little fingertips are too delicate, make her sort of, you know, just adjust the pose. You know, don't get too, she could be, you know, have her lay, you know, she could be folding her arms or something, like, you know, whatever needs to happen. Ultimately, your materials, the material limits of your stuff will have to play into this a bit. You know, you can't do what won't work with your materials. And so what I was just saying with the arrows, like, if those arrows had to be backed up and flat against clouds, you know, that wouldn't be the end of the world. They would still read as the arrows. You'd still have the clouds in there. You could still find ways of making it look like it wasn't flat or boring. You know, they don't need to be arrows jutting out from the clouds if that can't happen with the materials. It actually might. So right now, partly it's because you've got like this super dark gray background, but the dark gray arrows against the dark gray background, they're not necessarily reading that well. A lot of this, again, is just sort of like lighting and you know, the background and stuff, but like it's the ability for it to pop at a glance. You know, it's like no matter what, the first impression that someone gets from, like, the people form an opinion about stuff just in a millisecond. Play with the thicknesses, play with the things, and I think I think also, though, know that this looks good, and that really, like, if you did nothing but just play with the lighting, it would look really great. If you weren't necessarily planning on, like, you don't have to print something out in order for it to be something that feels like it's like a done thing. But it's very cool. Like, if you have like a 3D printer and can do that, that's extremely cool. Very cool. I like the idea of this. You know, long ago, I was experimenting with 3D stuff. When I was a kid, there was a program called True Space. No, that's not it. True Space 3D. Yeah, this was it. Oh wow, cool. Caligari, that was the program. Is this like, yeah, this is it. This is like my childhood, messing around with stuff like this. Oh wow, look at this, like Web 1.0. This is like old school. But yeah, it had this fun interface. Oh, that would be fun. That would be funny for me to dabble around with that again, see how much I could possibly remember. All right, Scroll. Well, hopefully that's a little bit of a... It may be. I don't know if I would recommend it to... Like, when was this... What year is this website from? Please download these files. There's no official support provided. Truce by 7.6. What are these videos? This would be so funny. It's like downloading really slowly from an old server right now, but it seems to work. It's coming in slow. But yeah, what this will feel like is like ancient. You flip the base over and already did a huge difference. See, I know what I'm doing. This is an executable file. What the? Oh, parallels. Oh, it's going to make me subscribe to Parallels again too, because I'm on a Mac, so I have to. Here, I'll do that later. I'll mess around later. Take a little trip down memory lane. All right. Sometimes that, so you flip the base over and it's looking better. Sometimes that stuff will be all you need to see what else it needs, if it needs anything else. And then for this, my own sake of argument, try it with a lighter background. See what that looks like. See if things are... Obviously, with a sculpture, you have limited dictation over the setting where it goes. But it might be worth looking into. I mean, I guess ultimately this is 3D printed in plastic, but there's like material concerns about like, well, how shiny is it? Where does it catch light and reflections? You'll see, I guess. Proof is in the pudding. All right, well, a little bit of Max pretends to know how to critique something. Get to play director a little bit. Not director, but play. Put on my art director hat. Let me think here. Can I just go like that? Get a darker color? Does that work? I'm going to switch to a different tool, I think. Need a lot of TLC. Let's click here. Yeah. I would go even further. It looks like you went around pinching it, but it actually has a cool effect. Maybe do some of the pinching at the top too. I'm not saying like make it look like a pie crust, but you know, maybe something. All you did was flip? Okay, cool. You know what? Weirdly, a pie crust might be sort of... I'm not saying it ticks all the marks, but like this sort of spirit of the way a pie crust has the variations. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to have this rigid soda can lip here. Which I know all you did was flip, so it's like, okay, TLC as you said. But yeah, definitely get the variations on the top. The ones on the bottom are interesting. That's a little bit of a fun surprise there. I think ultimately, make the bottom catch less light. Like if it's not the focus, yeah, try out radial breaks. There you go. All right, cool. That's fun. Yeah, I think the it happens a lot where people will be like, this one little part isn't working, and then they like retool the whole thing around. It's like, no, just fix the small thing that is like right there. You know, but it can be invisible sometimes. What might be the majority of the help can come from like one thing. If that was helpful at all. Okay, so I'm going to try and get a little bit more sculpturalness in. Link's hair. Exactly what I was doing, moving the clouds around, moving arrows around the base, yeah. Okay, let's go even darker. Sort of a fun experiment. Subtracting light now. I don't know if this is quite right though. Oop. Basically, Link's hair needs to feel like it's all over the place, so it needs a lot of work. His hair needs to be as crazy, shaggy as everything else, or something. I feel like hairs are going everywhere. There's bedhead and then there's deadhead, and that's what he's got going on. I'm going to go another 15 minutes, and then I'll have to get my kids ready for school and stuff, but feels like a strong start to a Monday. Like looking all fucked up. Just a little bit more depth in these skin tones. If I can. It's tricky. I don't want him to look too young. That looks good. He almost looks like my son here. Robbie has these great bright blue eyes. The color of the hair is exactly the same. He'll probably end up being moderately handsome like me, so I think there's a good shot of being a good model for live action Link, if not born far too late for the effect. It's too bright. That's interesting. Right. I have a sense that my son might be awake, so I'm going to open my office door a little bit so he can come in if he needs. Okay. Everything's quiet so far. Too many cups. Okay. It's gonna have to be something that feels... One way or another, I have to make it feel like there is some sweat and... Got some Chipotle chicken prepped. Excellent. I'm a fan of those smoked jalapeno flavors, for sure. This is tricky. How do I make it look like he's got teeth that can catch a highlight without looking like buck teeth? Be subtle. Okay, that feels good. Hands can feel like they can have highlights on them too. Right? Even these little eyelashes can catch light, right? Don't want to forget that. I'm going to render this as nicely as I can until I run into a brick wall with something, and then I'll throw some mud or debris or something on the portions that don't feel like they're getting rendered right. Sort of weird. Sometimes I feel like the highlights are starting off in one place and then moving to another. These Faerie highlights. Possibly more at home, just ever so shifted. Even in the middle of a nostril, you can catch a highlight. Corner of an eye. Crest of an eyelid. Totally plausible there might be a tear welling up in his eye. A bit of snot in his nose. Drool on his lip. Kind of liking how that's feeling. I don't want to phone it in with these ears. This has to be as good as I can make them. A little more bold. The light. Link's thumb through the bottle is getting light too. Let's do a quick save. Oop, might be a little overdue for a quick stop, but I think my kids are still asleep, so we're gonna steal a little more time. Maybe 10 more minutes. The nape of his neck can get sweaty and dirty. And therein we can find a highlight. Feeling good so far. Sort of interesting I didn't draw any of that firelight catching over here. That definitely would have happened. Right? Yeah, that's helping. I think. Yeah. Like maybe on this arm it gets a little bit blocked, but not all of it. Like here I could see it getting blocked by this hand a little bit. It's a little occluded. Do you ever squint at your work, Scroll Reaper? When you're designing with composition in mind, it really helps to squint it down and see what the big read is, because it's easy to get bogged down in the small details. What does this single brushstroke look like in a sea of a trillion brushstrokes? You can get bogged down on what one brushstroke is doing. Sometimes when I'm sketching, when I really want to try and like see the whole piece as a whole, I'll go like this, and I'll put my head far back as from a monitor as I can, and I'll put it up on this screen, and I'll see what it looks like at a distance when it's like when you're squinting and it's shrunken down and you can barely make it out. That's the image that hits the lizard brain. When we quickly see something and read it for the first time. The part of, from our point of view, our field of vision is so huge and we feel like we see so much detail, and we do. But like on a physical, like molecular level, what's being impacted is like a group of cells in our eye that is, the size of a microchip, basically. Like, you need to shrink something down till it's microchip size. And if it looks good then you got something. I'm not sure this looks like anything the size of a microchip, but it's a complex scene. It's not like one thing. That's the difficult truth about these subjects is they're complex, and they're not necessarily set up for the easy Instagram dopamine hit required to make things go viral. Now that this is this bright, so this is tricky. If this fire hitting here is as bright as it is, I think it's appropriate for it to be. Then this has to be a little bit brighter. Maybe not worlds brighter. But at least as much as that. I'm not loving how this bottle looks like it's shaped. The bottle stopper. I'll hold that in a little bit. It's not that important overall, but I don't want it to catch in my eye. It's like a It's an unimportant thing that is catching just a little bit too much attention. Right. It's important for the context of the bottle, but it should be read peripherally and not with any sort of without any without any real insistence. It's like direct it back. It's like reflecting the expression, not absorbing it. I feel like this highlight is too low. Darn it. It's tough with these face close-ups. It gets so lost in all the variation of skin tone, like the yellowy forehead versus the pinky cheeks versus the bluey jawline. And it's like I always feel like that stuff is overstated, but it does look good. This feels a little bit too. Let's get some separation there. Maybe, right? Gonna have to make this redder, I think. Some real redness. That looks so much more incredibly insane. Did I do too much? I think I did. It's like a sunburn. Maybe I can... Maybe I can take it and just dial it back a little bit more. It's so funny. You do all that, and it's like I prefer the original. Let me at least undo the shit that I just did, which I don't love. Okay. Maybe that's plenty. Definitely too much here. Feeling okay. If I take Link's lines and I make them sort of brownish, what will that do? Dark brownish, reddish. Can anybody tell that? Is that something I should have done? Not too bad, right? This is definitely kind of getting to the point where I might have to set it aside for a few days. Done too much. In danger of being too far gone. Shit. Alright, yeah, it's tough. Definitely time for me to finish up. I gotta get hash browns going. Okay, so do a quick save. Let's do a quick thumbnail. As is the ritual. Come on, here we go. Still got a long way to go. I should flop this next time too, but I'll make a little face. All right, enough of that goofiness. All right, I'm going to sign off. Squirrel Weeper, thanks for joining. Anybody else listening, thanks for popping in, and I will catch you next time. Adios.